And it was a wake-up call when I went there because I got to see two sides of it. So I really appreciate that experience sharing that I got to learn by tourism and seeing these countries and just think that I know everything, but I didn't. And that experience share with my EO group and all the other people involved in that got to feel the same way because we actually understood what it was about to give back to the community.
This is Shed Talk.
Welcome to Shed Talk. This is a place where we always... No, I'm just kidding. But you know what? Shed Talk has been something really special to me in the last year. I've got to build something, the things you know that you didn't know. We've changed it into health, wealth, and mindset because I was able to listen to my guests and understand where we could go to the next level. But when we ask ourselves as an individual, what are we grateful for the whole year? And I wanted to kind of sum up my whole year because I'm really grateful for it. I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful for my friends. I'm grateful for my EO counterparts that have helped me grow to be where I am today. And being a member with EO, my EO organization, for over 25 years, and an entrepreneur for roughly about the same amount of time, it gives me a place to give back. And this next year is about giving back and understanding health, wealth, and mindset. And one of my experiences I want to share, it's a really unique story. I was on a trip to the Philippines earlier this year and with my EO group. And if you've was on the LinkedIn post, if you've seen them, they were absolutely a stellar experience. But what was interesting, we go on these beautiful trips and we see these beautiful countries and they offer the most intriguing experiences. But do we actually really know what poverty is? And I call it tourism poverty. And it's not that I call it tourism poverty, it's what it is. And we go to countries and we see how countries like the Philippines or other countries work and play. And then when you actually see the poverty side of it and then the rich side of it, it sure brings a different perspective. I'd written an article a while ago on LinkedIn regarding poverty tourism and what I saw. And it was all about basically me taking my social media and I'm taking pictures of people and going, oh, well, look at this. This is bad. This is what we can make a change and change lives. But it wasn't actually about the changing of the life. It was actually about me taking the picture. Now, taking that picture, and we talk about social media, is it about me or is it about the story I'm telling about the people? And it came to one of the realizations is actually it was all about me. I'm telling the story about me, making me look good or whatever that story is. It's like, okay, well, look at this. Here's where I was. This is what I'm giving back. But it wasn't about that. It was actually about the people where I should be listening to what they had to say, what affects their lives, and how can I help by telling a story that they want to have told. Let them tell the narrative. And having to ask them, is it all right if I post this and do that? And ask them for permission versus assuming that it's okay. And it was a wake-up call when I went there because I got to see two sides of it. So I really appreciate that experience sharing that I got to learn by tourism and seeing these countries and just think that I know everything, but I didn't. And that experience share with my EO group and all the other people involved in that got to feel the same way because we actually understood what it was about to give back to the community. Not for ourselves. Yes, we feel important that we've got to do that, which we should as humanity goes, but we should be giving back to help them out as well to grow and understand their story, their narrative. Now, culturally speaking, like Canadians versus Americans versus the Filipino community, a totally different mindset. Not one's better than worse than the other, but it really makes you think about what culture you're in and where you're at. And what does poverty look like? When we talk about Canada, poverty is like this. We talk the Philippines, poverty is like this. And I'm not saying it's good. It's that we need to recognize it and make a drastic, positive change for each other. Now, here we are at Christmas time. We're going to get into getting the family together and wishing everybody a Merry Christmas and hey, Happy Christmas and all that good year stuff and drinking and making sure. I want to get more into talking about the health aspect of it too. As when we get into the Christmas there, a lot of stress and a lot of power comes amongst all of us that our family is this and we get pulled in different directions. this is a time that we actually sit back and just chill and relax. Think about what you're all about, where we are today, and where you're going to go. I'm going to get back into a story about the health, wealth, and mindset of Shed Talk. And one of the greatest values that I'm going to be giving back in the next year is when we talk about is fitness. As over 50, and I talk about men over 50 that finding themselves and looking at I call it an avatar, is somebody that's over 50. They've been divorced a couple times, and then they have a couple kids, but just finding themselves as an individual and making purpose in their lives. And that's where I find myself, is actually making sure that I'm striving to make purpose and looking at different ways of doing things that we've never done before. Because sometimes as we get older, we become very complacent of who we are. And we sometimes forget to be grateful for where we are today and thank the people that we're with. So when we become 50 and we're older and we're much wiser because we know everything now. Like, trust me, we know things way more than our kids know. And now we get to look back at our kids and say, well, I used to do that. And now you became your parents. You became that of which we always talked about. But as we're getting older here we are at 50 and 55, getting in shape and having to actually truly listen to what your body says to you, because as we're getting older, we gain a little bit more weight. We become a little more lazier at what we're doing. We become complacent at what we're doing. But that's not true. We can actually change our lives at 50. We can change the way we are and who we are at 50. And it's okay to be overweight. It's okay to have some drinks. It's okay to be this. But understanding that it's time to change. I'm going to give an experience, is that I purchased an Apple Watch. And I talked a lot about this, is that, so at 50, overweight, 240 pounds, sleep apnea, gout, bladder cancer, arterial fibrillation, what do they call it, AF, or I don't know, heart arrhythmia, whatever, okay, AFib, call it AFib. And when I got my Apple Watch, and then my AFib went off on my Apple Watch 2 months later, and I'm going, oh my gosh, this is the greatest watch ever. I got AFib. It showed me that I got AFib. Then it went off again a few months later, and I've been to the doctor, been to the hospital, got it checked, and they said it's this, and there's 3 parts of it. And we had one of the gentlemen on our podcast before, and Diamond, and he was on, and he explained a lot about that part of the heart. And it seems to be more on the electrical side. Like, so the electrical meaning it's in your head. It's not in your head that you're guessing it, but it's that chemical reaction here. And I'm not a doctor to say it, but it was interesting. I probably had AFib my whole life, never realized it. But all of a sudden I got an Apple Watch, and all of a sudden it just made me aware of it. Now that I'm aware of it, and now my body, and I've lost weight, got rid of sleep apnea, got rid of gout, got rid of everything that I possibly could, like eating healthy, I was able to actually deep dive my body and what it actually felt like to be sober, what it actually felt like to be present, not having that block, not having brain fog, not having that. Then all of a sudden, at that particular time, and I'm talking about AFib, my watch going off, not knowing if I had it. It went off a few times, but when it went off, it basically told me that, and I never felt any different. It felt that my heart rate went to like 70 beats per minute versus like, say, because my resting heart rate's about 50. And AFib, when they shock you out of that, you'd have to be like a 150 to 200. They shock you out of that. And one of the research shows on AFib is that you can live with AFib for your whole life. You can live with it and manage a life, and it's fine. But what happens is you can actually have a stroke or a heart attack because it clots. So they want you to be on thinners or whatever that is. And I don't know the right terminology, so I'm not I'm not a doctor to talk about that. But what I did find out is I knew enough about my body that all of a sudden I said, okay, wait a sec, I'm an AFib. And this was the other day. And I went, okay, I'm going to rest. I'm just going to have a rest and just lay down. And sure enough, my watch is going off and I'm in AFib. I said, well, okay, I've rested for a couple hours and here it is, and I'm AFib. It's at 78 beats per minute. So it's not in the hundreds or 200s to be worried about that I should be concerned. We'll always be concerned. But what was happening is that I said, okay, well, if I'm in AFib and I did a rest and meditation and just sat back and did that, that's great. but nothing came out. Then all of a sudden, I Googled it. This is where Google comes into play. Is that then all of a sudden what happened was it says, go for a workout if you're fit and you've been working out and you've been doing something. Just don't go for a workout if you've never worked out. This is where this comes into play. So I went to the gym and got on the cardio machine and bumped my heart up off the cardio machine to 150. So once I got it to 150, it was kind of like a restart. It went into 150, came back, and I actually got out of AFib because of the fact as the matter is I bumped it up, came back, and now I got out of AFib. So because I knew that much about my body and understood my heart rate from going from here to here, what kind of foods that I'm putting in my body, I mean, is there too much sugar? Is there too much wheat? Is there too much this? Am I eating too much? Where am I at? And that's where the bodybuilding comes into play, that showed me in determination and motivation. But I knew where I was at 56 years old, how my body reacts to certain things. And then with the Apple Watch going off, and then all of a sudden I created what we call as a life hack. So the life hack became me basically monitoring the not sleep apnea, the heart arrhythmia, and being able to say, wait, I can get out of that. I probably had this my whole life, but the Apple Watch actually brought it to my attention. I asked a doctor one time, and I said to him, say, when Apple Watches came out and they had the AFib on there, did actually more people come in saying, hey, my Apple Watch went off and here it is, more diagnosis with AFib versus ever before, which obviously for sure it had gone up, but they want you to wear a monitor. They want you to do that, which is very important. Please do that and then go through it. So it definitely it just made people more aware of where they were at and where they can go. So with an experience sharing on this is one of those things that, AFibs work. Trust it, check your doctor, but understand what you're eating and how you're doing and what you're putting back into your body. This is one of the things for 2025 was we're talking about health and how much is portion controlling, what are we putting in our body, where are we going, and how are we cleaning our minds so that you don't have brain fog, so that you're positive and you're reassuring everything that you do, because you need to look after your body so that you can look after your mind and then look after your wealth. Because once you have your body in line, your mindset comes into play as well, because it needs to be working together to sync. We have this great Ferrari that we've built. We want to take it for a test ride. Well, let's not put in the wrong type of fuel. Now, I would say we can have an electric vehicle or we can have a premium vehicle with gas, but that's probably on both sides of the fence. Just don't turn your heat up. So outside of that, I've also been doing some really funky stuff that actually changes your body, your mind, and your soul. This is actually one of the funnest things I did. And every year it gets better because I took a year off and wanted to understand, what does it really take to grow muscle? So you're 50 years old, and people always tell you that, you know what? When you're 50, you can't build muscle, you can't do this, you're pretty much done. Well, you know what? I actually really wanted to deep dive in and actually see it. It's kind of one of those things, people will give you workout schedules or people will talk about fitness. People talk about, oh, you can't grow muscle after 50. You know what? If you're doing this, you're just going to be able to sustain it and do it. No. I turned around and said, okay, I'll change my diet, obviously. But what was interesting, during the bodybuilding phase, what I did is make sure I cut. But every single day I was working out to lift weights to actually increase muscle mass. Now, this is on a clean side. We're not talking using gear. We're not talking, and when I use gear as an example, like steroids or other chemicals and to grow. The whole purpose of it was to lose weight and define the muscle group to actually be functional to work. So I had taken a year off, like I did some bodybuilding before, lost the weight so I could see where my muscle mass was at, then took the year off and then came back. And one of my first comebacks, coming back after the 1 year of growing muscle and doing, was in Washington. I actually did a bodybuilding competition in Washington, D.C., and that was around September. And I met some amazing people. It's a great team. It's a great culture. It's the tribe. We call it the tribe because everybody's in the same mindset of working out. Now, it's not that everyone's massively big and they're all this and they're all muscle heads and they're all dumb and blah, 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 like the stereotypical that they say. But no, it's your tribe. It's your people that they understand health, wealth, and mindset. They work towards it. But as I was getting into this and competing in this competition, you get to take your body down from like, I think I was at 190, I got it down to 161. And I mean, I was thin through the face. But competing in this, it actually brings a whole different mindset to what you're doing because you really become in tune with your body. Like I was talking before about food choices and doing, but when you start to really understand how your muscles work, and it doesn't mean that you want to be a bodybuilder to understand your muscles working. It's understanding that you want to be at 55 or 60 or 70, is that you're able to actually, I want to grow enough muscle. I want to have enough strength that I can actually pick up my grandchildren and put them over my head. So what does that mean? Well, going to the gym and picking up a 20-pound weight and working that so that you're working that so that your 20-pound granddaughter, you can pick her up. And that you're not winded, that you're not out of breath, because you don't have to grow big muscles to do what we talk about. But it's actually being more functional, that you can actually withstand falling down and not breaking a hip, breaking an arm, or breaking a leg. Because it's really important as you want to go for hikes, you want to be active at any given time. What better time at 50 to get into shape? And that's where the bodybuilding is actually taking me, because I'm on the extreme side. So here's my food, here's my diet. But understanding what it can give back to yourself is going into that whole holistic bodybuilding mindset, and it corrects your posture. And now my posture is not corrected. Don't kid yourself, but it's a lot better than it ever was. Clarity becomes very clear. So it was one of those things I said, if this was that great doing this bodybuilding competition, and I did it in Washington. Oh, and by the way, I finished first, which was awesome. Blown away. The guys were awesome. And then 2 months later, I did another competition in Calgary with the WMBF as well, and did that one, and keeping them back to back and losing weight and getting it. And then I did another bodybuilding competition in Calgary as well, and with Paramount. And every organization that I've been with and every team that I've been with have been outstanding and very motivating to do it. I look at the bodybuilding thing of 2024 was a year of creating goals and opportunity, because I was able to put a goal, put in an objective, and actually work towards it. Win, lose, tie, or draw, you're only up against yourself. And I'd met a lot of people while doing this journey, and then talking to people that are around my age, around 50, and then say, man, I would love to do that. Oh, I wish I could. Well, you can. Oh, I would never get in shape. Yeah, you can get into shape. You just try. Just put one foot in front of the other and go to the next level. Now, this is what changes the whole perspective of bodybuilding or anything that you do, is that if you can physically go in to an organization, put on the skimpiest bikini, okay? And I mean, it's skimpy, like when you're doing men's bodybuilding, and you're on stage and that's all you're seeing, you can do anything in the world. And remember, I'm not that big, and there's guys that are beating me out. And here's this old guy that's only competing with themselves. But we actually, as we get older, are the one person in the world that, does it really matter? We change people's lives because they get to look at, here's this guy on the stage, looks after himself, and he's in a bikini. Man, once I did that, I could do anything. That was one of those things that, well, if I can do that, I can do this, I can do this. And I didn't have that guy on my shoulder, the naysayer saying, you shoulda, coulda, oh, you can't do that. People are going to think of you. No, they're not. The only person that it truly affects is myself. If it affects me that I think it's a bad thing, that's a me problem. Does it affect anyone else out there? No. All they look at is they just go, wow, I can't believe he did that. That is amazing. I wish I had the guts to do that. But it's not a wish I had the guts. It's the guts that are actually, you just need to do. Create an opportunity to do something that you wouldn't normally ever do, and just do it. And all out, you just do it because you can. We were doing the bodybuilding, and they had asked, you have to do a routine. And the routine is like a 60 seconds dance routine. Literally, you got to pose and do your dance. I said, well, that's interesting. And I can do anything. They said, yeah, you can do anything. Have fun with it. And I went, well, what does fun mean? Well, what does that mean to each individual? Some people, well, I got to make sure I can only do this because, someone might get offended. No one's going to get offended. Just do you. Be you. And when I did the run routine, I actually said, well, let me think outside the box. Can I do the routine where it's just like you're listening to my head, my thoughts in my head. I'm going to talk about, oh, this is what a bodybuilder should do is this, and do it differently than everybody else. Set the bar, what the bar you want to set for yourself. It's not anybody else. It's your bar. Because once you hit that level for yourself and you feel that level, you get to raise it to the next one. And doing the first one's always the hardest. The first level, first bar, first attempt, first everything that we do is always the hardest. After that first one, you go to the next one and it becomes easier. It's kind of like doing a warm-up. When you're doing a warm-up and you're warming your legs up, if you just went into an exercise or you went for a walk, you're very slow. But then all of a sudden, 20 minutes in, and then all of a sudden you get very fast at it. All of a sudden you're stretched out because you started, okay? You had to actually have a starting point, and that was the first start. Actually, once you're in it, the second getting faster and better and stronger, it doubles in size and effort. So it's amazing to start life with the first, which is the hardest, and everybody gives up at the first, doing 2, 3, 4, 5, and it takes off. I always use this mantra. If you can sell one thing, you can sell 1,000 things. The hardest part is the one. Not number 10, not number 15, not 80. It's number 1. It's like they always say, the hardest part is making your first million. Second part is keeping that first million. And then after that, the rest is easy. Making the first is the hardest. After that, it just keeps going. But that's what it's all about, is doing the first thing for the first time. When was the last time you did something for the first time? And you probably heard that saying. And every day should be about that last time you did something for the first time. And that's where health, wealth, and mindset comes into play. You've got to be able to take yourself outside of that and say, if I wasn't here tomorrow, what would I do today? Well, today I'm going to live the greatest day that I possibly can, and I'm going to double it up. And if I can double today, that means I can double tomorrow, and I'm going to double the next day, and so on, and so on, and so on, just like compound interest. So a great experience sharing on that for 2025 coming up and where we're going to go with it. So right now, what we're doing to design with Shed Talk is we're getting ready to do a TED Talk. So as we're getting older, 56 years old, here I am, and I'm looking at this and saying, what is the one thing I've never done before? And said, let's do it. And it's a TED Talk. So I'm actually getting ready to formulate, put together my 12-minute segment of the TED Talk and what it takes to be in shape over 50, how to change your life to health, wealth, and mindset, and make an impact on humanity as who we are today. And it's interesting because somebody had asked me, why are you doing that? It's you're going out there to do it. I said, because I can. I said, it's something that's really hard to do, so let's do it. Then from there, as we do the TED Talk, and I'm getting that basically all over North America to get all my applications out, have that in there, have the TED Talk done, then set up for a signature talk. Now, the signature talk is basically taking that talk in your 45 minutes and talking about health, wealth, and mindset, deep diving and making it better for 2025, and how many talks that I can do, and doing those talks worldwide to make change on whatever that's going to be. Basically setting up and actually building a book, building that social media around that this is the only time in history that we can actually look at advertising, marketing, branding, podcasting, vodcasting, Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook and Instagram. We get to use all these applications to actually in the world right now and double our value as an individual for doing personal branding. A lot of people do it for companies, but I get to do this for personal branding and actually see where I can actually grow with it. So 2025 is going to be a really interesting year that it's going to catapult my visibility out there, to ask better questions, and to say, think about the things you know that you don't know, and what does that truly mean? Each guest that we're bringing on is going to have a really unique context. Because when we interview them and we want them on the podcast, they want to expand their reach, their market, their talk. But I get to deep dive about the curiosity question about what's in it for them, okay? How can everybody else want to be you, whoever you are? And how can we change the way we are today? Because everybody listens to podcasts and they eavesdrop into our conversations because that's what we do. And what's the nugget or tidbit that we can get? Now, if you have some ideas of a tidbit or a nugget that you really want to know more about, but we're scared to ask, or you were thinking you wanted to, you know what? Just email us at Shed Talk, Kevin Halliday at Shed Talk, and ask that question. DM me and say, hey, you know what? I want to know more about this. And I would like to have you interview this guest. So what I would do is I would reach out to that particular person and say, hey, you know what? I've had a few people ask me about, they want to know more about this question. Will you come on my podcast and talk about it? And we can deep dive that and see exactly what we can answer for that. And that's what 2025 is about, is being grateful, learning new things, asking ourselves better questions, creating curiosity. And as you, the listener, let's think outside the box and have you interact with us and ask a question that I can answer on the next one, and then basically get that guest. Because I'll even go to their place of business and do like an interview and say, hey, you know what? I have a question for you, and do it, and then it'll be on our Instagram or whatever that is. But just to ask the question of whatever that would be. If we have those questions, we can change a lot of things. And 2025 is going to be a great year for growth, potential, AI, from the podcast that we talked about, where that's have grown. We're in for a big, I don't say wake up, a growth spurt, and watching this go to the next level. So with 2025 upon us, I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year's, and keep your drinks low, keep your energy high. And you know what? Remember, curiosity is only a conversation away. And thanks for joining me on Shed Talk, and have a wonderful Christmas.
Now you know. Shed Talk.